Welcome to The First Turn. I'm your host, Hyena, and today, Llama and I are talking about This Week in Warhammer. If you like what you hear, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share, or let us know if there's something you'd like to hear us talk about. Alright, let's get to it. Welcome to The First Turn. I'm Hyena.
I'm Llama.
And today on this holiday-themed edition of our humble little talk show,
Yep.
we are heading into the last week before Christmas.
Yep. Boxing Day for some of you.
Boxing Day, indeed. I kind of want those new Boxing Day commemorative models for Cities of Sigmar, though. Kind of nice. They always generally do that. Is there's some kind of like little event models that they come out with. This one is weird because it's like a nothing. You know, it's like there are rules for the couple models that they represent, but they're like a different pose. They're like an alternate pose / here's a shared base if you want to do them as a diorama, a little mini diorama for
Interesting choice.
The two witch hunters that came out from which campaign was it? Malign Portents, I think. Was with all the endless spells.
Father-daughter team.
Yeah, they were like witch hunting, spell hunters. They used to like squash the endless spells that were rampaging. But yeah, kind of interesting thing. So we may not be doing an episode next week. We'll see how schedules work out with holidays and whatnot. So we might have a little hiatus.
Possible holiday break.
Yep. But we are wrapping up the end of our Grotmas calendar for Warhammer 40K, and it is it's interesting. I think it's interesting. I don't know how competitively viable any of these detachments are. Some of them I think 100% are top tier, but some of them are just fun. You know,
I think there's certainly more. Every single one of them that I've read, I should say, or that I've listened to people describe, they feel more creative, at least, than the original batch that like some of the earlier codexes or indexes had in 10th.
100%.
That tried to be vanilla or single buff or did nothing.
Well, think about like when like Tau just came out today. This is the day we're recording. This was when the Tau comes out. And they have a mercenaries themed buff node. I don't know what you want to call it. It's a set of buffs that are dependent on you bringing the Tau mercenaries, the Kroot, which are several different units for that now, and the new Vespid kit, which is in plastic, and then buffing nearby actual Tau models and vice versa. And then we go to hide and not be seen from greater than 18 inches away and stuff like that. Basically stealth for your auxiliaries. Like it's an interesting detachment, and it's way more interesting than the actual like Kroot themed one that we had. And so but they're all like this, right? It's not just the Tau one. The Gene Stealer cult ones is Gene Stealers plus Tyranids. Yeah. Like up to half of your army is Tyranids. The other way around of Brood Brothers, right? Because before I'd be like, oh, well, you can bring your Gene Stealer cults, and then here are these hidden agents within the Astra Militarum that are really part of the cult. This is the opposite. This is like, oh, it's Ascension Day, and the Tyranids are starting to show up. They're taking over. Synapse is starting to take effect on your Gene Stealer models, and here's this combined force. Which I wonder if you can bring Brood Brothers in that as well, a certain number of points. That would be funny.
Well, in the past, they let you bring them as allies when they did that system, and this was like a way to bring that back. But but again, I'm going to choose the word creative because this seems way more interesting in how it's implemented. And you're right. Even the way they tried to set it up makes it feel like it's the High Fleet's arrived. And it was describing even how some of them, just fluff-wise, have that moment like in the Animatrix where the guy wakes up and sees that he's in it and then like goes back in. Like some of these Gene Stealer cults are realizing what it is that's actually coming, and it's not what they thought. They thought it was this salvation coming, and it's like, oh no, this thing's just coming to eat everybody, including us.
And we took down the defenses, so it'll be very easy.
Yeah. Whoops. And like he then goes mad or whatever the case is. And so yeah, very very neat way to give them a different way to play.
Or just new ways to play
and that's what they've all felt like.
It's great. I really like it. Yeah. So
and we got another AOS update.
We did, yeah. So we got some updates to some army rules.
Scroll.
The War Scroll. No.
Battlescroll.
There you go. Battlescroll. The War Scroll is the actual just like data sheet. Which is also something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So we have a new update that dropped this week as well for AOS involving a lot of points changes and a select handful of minor erratas and keyword changes and things like that, and some clarifications, but also some army rule changes too, which is kind of I always like to see. The point changes on their own are a lot to dig through, mostly because they they free up some options. They change your relative weight, your value of a unit compared to other units, and so you start thinking like, well, with this being this cost now, if it's cheaper, it's like, well, I might take that instead of the other one now because while the other thing might be better, this one's more cost effective and that frees up points, and then I can maybe add something else or upgrade something else. It's a lot more to really dig into. I mean, I've personally come up with like 20 new lists based on the new points just because it's kind of do. Well, I do that a lot.
Two armies we look at a lot saw some points decreases.
Yeah.
Skaven saw some stuff come down, and Slaves to Darkness saw, for some reason, the Exalted Hero on foot went up, who never gets played, and then but the Chaos Lord and Demonic Mount came down,
and then he needed to.
All the Dark Oath stuff came down.
Yeah.
Which was big.
Dark Oath look pretty juicy now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
They look pretty solid.
Because when you look at it on the surface and it's like, oh, that only came down 10 or 20, it's like, yeah, but all of these units came down.
Yeah.
Now I can fit that package in so much neater. Yeah.
Phrasing.
Yep.
But I also, in addition to all that, and just that list building aspect of points changes, there was some changes to the seasonal rules and the actual core rules for list building. There was some big changes to how the double turn works, and how that interacts with kind of your decision making of whether you want to go first or not. Because sort of the big changes they're trying to do is make it tactical, right? It's not an auto included. Oh, I got priority for the top of
Take
two.
Another turn, kill stuff. Yeah,
I'm going to do it 100% of the time. They're making that choice harder, right? The previous iteration had no penalties. It just happened.
Yeah.
The current,
the fourth ed version,
the near current version of it gave you incentives not to do it because it gives your opponents some advantage in that your maximum point total decreases if you take it, and your opponent gets extra CP. They get usually from the mission you choose. They get some kind of benefit for being an underdog if they're lower on points than you are.
Yep.
But they're kind of playing more onto sort of some of those aspects of it, where not only now do you not get your tactic for the turn if you choose to do it, but you also make your opponent the underdog for the rest of the game until they choose to take the double turn if they do.
Yeah.
And if someone makes me the underdog, I'm just sticking with it. I'm never taking the double turn then, because then you're not worried about what the point. What the score of the game is for determining underdog, because you do have to consider it a little bit,
right?
Swapping who's underdog a little bit, because there are some pretty decent benefits. But if I'm underdog the rest of the game, it's like done.
Yep.
That can slingshot me, in addition to you costing you some points. Can slingshot me into that power spike I need to.
Well, even if you're in the lead and you're still the underdog because you didn't take the double turn, and now you're scoring less, that's pretty relevant.
Yep.
They also gave us two new of the generals.
So the basically the veterans.
Yeah.
Rules essentially of the army. So when the
bodyguard
thing. Yeah. So there were 5 previous things you could do. Things like give your favored unit a additional rend against certain specific targets that you needed to do. There was one where you had sort of an advisor to your general that could bodyguard for them and make them make enemies less effective at attacking your general if they're nearby. Things like that. I forget what the actual thing is called, but it's a pretty big part of the list building. They also changed the benefits you get for the number of regiments you bring, right? Because before it was you were just at a disadvantage, period, if you brought more than 2 regiments.
Right. Because
if you have a third, there's a good chance your opponent only has 2 and they get all these benefits over you for having fewer. Now there's actually a benefit to bring more than your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like this trade-off. It's like, do I want more or do I want fewer to gain whichever benefits I'm trying to jockey for? Now if you have more than your opponent, you get a second one of these unit buffs.
Yep.
And again, like we were saying, there's 2 new ones because the other ones were kind of limited, right? You were limited to which units were eligible to get the buffs. There wasn't really anything for monsters. There wasn't really much in the way for heroes getting buffs. Now there are for both, really.
Yep. Because they even specify the second one you choose can't be from the same regiment.
Right.
So, like, yeah, now you're just a random other unit in your army, and you're like, now you get this cool thing.
One of them, I mean, is marginally useful. It's a monster counts as being full health track, no matter what, which is, in this edition of the game, is less important,
yeah,
because you're not, degrading 4 of your stats 4 times as you get wounded. Now it's generally 1 attack profile goes down by a couple of swings, which, if you've got nothing else to use it on, is fine. The other one though is solid.
I don't remember.
Do you remember what it was?
Nope.
Pause.
Put down. But this was a 72-page.
It's only like page 3.
Specialist Field Sergeant.
Field Sergeant is the other one. Field Sergeant is for a hero, a foot hero,
non-fly infantry hero.
Yep.
In but not leading a regiment.
Yep. Very specific. Yeah. So it not only has to be a 2nd regiment, non-general regiment hero, but it can't even be the hero that's leading the regiment. You have to bring a hero as part of an alternate regiment to get this buff. But the buff is infantry wholly within 12 are +2 to move.
Yeah, add 2 to the move characteristic of friendly non-fly infantry while they're wholly within 12 of the honor guard.
It's so solid.
And so it's funny is, like, again, Slaves to Darkness was one of the few armies that had these heroes that were not the leaders of regiments. You could still take them when you took another lead. Well,
there was a limited list. That's another thing they changed is the list for every army has vastly expanded.
And I think it's because of stuff like that. So now you have this incentive to take another, lieutenant level hero on foot.
I was thinking about ways to do maybe double, like reinforced chosen Mark of Slaanesh, Banner of Slaanesh plus the hero gets something so that they're all +2 to move, running and rolling an extra die for charging and all that. Like,
yep.
I think Slaves of Darkness can very much take advantage of this type of thing on the units that are already excelling in the army. I think it's pretty solid.
Well, I was already thinking of, like, because some of the lords you take can unlock the Myrmidon.
Sure. Yeah.
And then if he's got Theridans nearby who are non-fly infantry, and now they get extra movement.
Yep, Theridans another great target for this kind of a buff. I think ogres absolutely want this buff. I mean, hell, even Stormcast, who usually has pretty slow movements,
and you've got piles of heroes to choose from.
Idoneth Deepkin, 100% want this. Like, there are so many units in the game that would absolutely love +2-inch movement on their infantry.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be. I think we're going to see this one as like 85% choose rate in lists because it's so good.
And or it will always be the second one.
Right.
Like, you will see more people go like 4 regiments so that they can take a second one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the other ones are fine. They're all offensive. They're very situational. This one is universally good. Just bonus movement is great. And it's not for one specific unit. It's everything wholly within 12. That's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really excited they're doing that kind of thing because it does help things out a lot. On another front, we have Destruction coming early in 2025. They're getting updates to both Gloomspite Gets in the Wolf sector, and then the Orc War Clans are getting a new book. I am not sure when that book is supposed to be coming out. Because usually we have sort of an embargo window where, like, content creators and reviewers and stuff will get a product and be told you can't release stuff until this day. So, the creators, prep a video or they prep an article or something to be released on that specific day. I saw a full Orc War Clan reveal video on Friday. The whole thing.
Wow.
And it's like, I didn't even realize there was a pre-order window that wasn't, like, it wasn't announced.
No.
So I think it's super weird that we've got the full book shown without even an ETA of when it's releasing. I mean, we know it's coming, but it's out. Like, we've seen the whole thing. It follows a similar style to the other 3 books we've gotten. It's index plus / minus, right?
Yeah.
Like, because it's not better than index. I wouldn't call it like this is index plus. It's index plus all these other things they added. It's like They tweaked a couple things, but it's mostly the same thing as the index. Index adjacent. With maybe a couple tweaks to, the wording of rules or casting values or some stat profiles, maybe that's slightly changed. It's not much. There's not much different in that book. I think it's fine. I think it's fine.
So, my thoughts on that, two things. I think historically we've been so accustomed to, with Games Workshop games, that whenever a book comes out, whenever an army in either game system transitions from index phase to book phase, the book is so much more robust than the index.
Right.
And the second thing is, but I think we lose a little sight of, I remember when 4th edition Age of Sigmar was launching, they talked about how they wanted all the rules you need to be on these cards. And so these books are a big $60 of nothing.
Yeah.
Because the index really is the rules for your army, and the book is just going to tweak it.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you end up getting a big wave of new models, whatever, but that's not even the book giving you that much more content. That's just more cards they could have printed.
Exactly.
So I think they're sticking to that. They want the rules reference to be really simple in this game.
Yeah.
Even though the rules are becoming more complex, but it just shows that the books themselves aren't offering much new.
Right. I will say two other things, though, is the edition is young.
It is.
And I think a lot of people still have 3rd edition on their mind, right?
Yep.
Because when 4th edition came out, the intention was we are going to lower the stats and kind of normalize them and flatten them across all races, call it. Mm-hmm. So orcs will be a little clumsier, but they'll be stronger. Ogres will hit like monsters. Monsters will have this profile. Humans are this. Elves, this kind of thing. So the orcs are 4s and 3s typically, hit and wound. But with that in mind, right, if you look at the index cards right now, they are very different from what they were in 3rd edition.
Yep.
But if you forget that's the thing, and then you see the review of the book and you see the war scrolls in the book and you're like, wow, they've really changed orcs. They're way worse now. They're way nerfed because look at all these hit profiles, hitting on 4s across the whole army. Like I saw all kinds of like comments and stuff like that. Like they nerfed Gore Gruntas, the old Iron Jaws pig riders.
Yeah, the pigs. Yeah.
So before they were kind of the best of all worlds, right? They were faster than everything else. They were just as tanky. They had more health. They had impact hits. They did bonus damage on the charge. They had all these rules.
Sometimes they had extra moves.
They were so good. But they toned them back to have a different role now, right? So the heavy hitters of the army are definitely brutes. The Ard boys hold the line. The pig riders are fast, and they're shock cav. They do a little bit, but they're not lifting all the weight of the army. But it was funny because like a lot of the comments I saw was like, wow, they really nerfed the pigs. They're only 1 damage on their weapons now, and it's like flip, go back to the index, and it's like they've been 1 damage this entire edition.
Right.
They didn't just become 1 damage here in this book.
Yeah.
Like, did you forget to go look back and reference what they were this edition? Like, this is a really weird like sticker shock moment for you when it's been like 8 months or something that they've had this stat profile. 6 months, whatever. Yeah. It's just like, now they did, I don't know if it was a misprint, but they lowered the hit rate on the pigs to 5s. The pigs, like the giant pig riders, now hit on 5s. Whoops. That was a change because they were 4s and 3s. Now they're like 5s and 2s. Just like
on the monster themselves.
It's like 5s. And they're not really monsters. They're just larger than normal pigs.
Yep.
They're like horse-sized pigs. Not like the big pigs, the newest ones they came out with.
No, the regular Gore Gruntas. Yes.
They've been out for a while. Weird. A little weird. They tweaked some of the casting values and the power of some of the spells and stuff. They tweaked that kind of stuff a little bit. Kind of flatten things into the normal rules writing that they have now. If this is a core ability, this is this phase, this is a once per game, this is a once per turn. They've tweaked some of that stuff a little bit. And so, I think the orcs, they don't look worse than they were, but they're definitely not better.
No.
Some things definitely did get better. I really like how they changed the, what do they call it? The Ard boys, the basic line troops. They changed them a little bit to make them just straight up better, in my opinion. So before they had this shield bash ability where it was like, here's my weapon. I also have a shield. If I am charged, I can use this ability to shield bash the oncoming chargers. That was their ability. They rebuke them by like smashing their shields into them, and they do mortal wounds per model in the unit, in the Ardboy unit. But it was only when you were charged. So if you never charged them, you never get to trigger the ability.
Nope.
Now it is just in the combat phase of any turn they get to shield bash. But the stipulation is it's only the models within combat range of the unit you select can make the shield bash rolls. So it's like, okay, well that makes sense because I need to be within that 3-inch range in order to use a melee weapon.
Yep.
Right? But it's 4 times more useful because there's so many more situations that you can now have your unit shield bash as opposed to before.
You don't have to sit there and wait until you're charged.
Yeah. So it's like it's so much better now for like just that one unit, right? That makes a really big difference. But it's that kind of thing. And I'm not upset that things aren't power spiking when they get a book.
Yeah.
I would like more to be fixed because there are some things that still aren't great. They still aren't playable. Like some of the new models that came out just still aren't playable. The Brute Ragers, both of those units that came out, it's like they're the same cost as Brutes, but just half the damage and half the save. Like it doesn't make sense why they cost the same amount.
For 3 guys.
For 3 guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like same cost for 3 guys as it is for 3 of the Brutes. Oh, okay. It's not like a 3-man unit costs same as a 5-man unit. Gotcha. But like per model, they're the same, but they're just way less durable. They're a little faster because they can run and charge, but they do less damage. It's weird. Like I don't understand the purpose of them, and they just haven't gotten any real attention. And they just got a new book that addresses nothing. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. You can't expect the rules team to address every single thing when an update comes out. Some things get missed, and some things you need to let shake out a little bit to see if other changes make something more viable.
Well, and then they'll look at like once the book's out and we get data and some events and things like that start happening. What is their army looking like? What is their player representation like?
Right.
And then they'll make changes that sometimes are big. Like you talked about when some armies do get tweaks, or even like when Maggotkin had that full rule added, they'll do stuff like that. If they find that unit's just never getting played kind of thing, and they know points aren't the way to really fix it anymore, you have to give them something.
Right. Yep. And then on the other half of the book, I mean, I think there still is a big WoW in it. You can bring both the 2 orc clans together. But the Cruel Boys, I think, were reined at everyone again, screaming nerf. But every time anything is released, it's nerfed.
It's always nerfed.
That's just a general rule, I guess. But they got rid of some of the no fun to play against sort of aspects. And that was like the kill bows being flat 6 plus D3 damage or whatever against monsters, or maybe it's just flat 6 damage versus monsters instead of D6. 2 shots, by the way. Instead of being like every kill bow is just flat 6 versus monsters, now it's a once per turn army rule to make your bow flat 6. The other ones are all D6.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, that tones down the damage on them a little bit because that's a little ridiculous if you just bring I bring 3 kill bows that are all flat 6 against all your monsters, 2 shots.
Yeah.
It's like I sit still on +1, so I'm 3s and 2s -2 flat 6.
Right. Dead monster.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. And so that was changed. There was a sneaky whatever rule, a sneaky ploy, a tricksy trick, whatever. They're a ploy. I don't remember. Dirty trick. It's their army rule. There was one that allowed a unit to outflank basically and come on a board edge outside of their deployment zone. That was just kind of a free thing. It was a little much in terms of like the pressure the army would apply because it was almost guaranteed. So they got rid of one of them, a rule like that made it so you can do that. But instead they gave them, I think one of the lore of the WoG is pick up and redeploy a unit. So it's like we have that instead. Mm-hmm. And then you've got endless spell lore now, which is pretty solid. And you've got a new piece of terrain that's free to bring. So it's like there are buffs there. There are new things that are provided to the army, and generally the stats just aren't that bad. The new character looks kind of crazy, the Hobgoblin, because he gets just to execute an enemy hero. You get in range of him, and he's like, I roll 2d6. If it beats your health characteristic, you're removed from play once per game.
Oh, it's the
Hand of Dust kind of thing.
Well, and Gaunt Summoner can do that.
Yeah.
But he has to cast it.
Yep.
Yeah.
This guy just gets to do it once per game in combat.
Yeah. Stab. Dead.
And in addition, he makes the other grots better, and there's like synergies with Slumdrek, crime boss Slumdrek, whatever, one of the named guy on the Marsh Crawler. He makes one of the Hobgrot units better, gives them like filthy weapons so they do mortal wounds when they attack. Like there's some synergy stuff there. I think there's enough going on in the Cruel Boys that it's like they're pretty solid.
And you know, not to like call out the crowds, but they won't see most of that up front because I don't think we've talked about this before. I don't think they go in with a clean slate mind.
Right.
They go in knowing the way they've always played it, knowing exactly what the thing does. If that changes, it means it's a nerf. They then assume the whole army's that.
And let's also consider the fact that they also got point changes here this week before the book is actually coming out too. So it's like this was anticipation of some things changing in the book when it comes out, and the points have already been adjusted now.
Yeah.
So, I mean that does give you a little bit of a period where you're playing with the better, quote unquote, better version of the guys with the current points.
Yeah.
And so when they change, they might be worse for the same number of points. So you might be a little bit of like a honeymoon phase now, but
then something like the Hobgrots might be better.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I thought that with the Slaves to Darkness too, but now that we have these points for them, for the Dark Oath and everything coming down, and
which I mean, I should have seen it coming that a second wave of points changes were coming because, like I said, whatever last week, a week before when we were talking about it is the fact that every single thing that lost the ability to take a mark, named characters specifically, can never be marked, right? It was like a 20-point decrease on every named character. So it's like, so the ability to take a mark is a 20-point. Is worth 20 points.
Right.
Is that the thing? Well, now we've seen multiple other point decreases, pretty substantial ones too. I mean, there were multiple units in that Battlescroll that were like minus 50 points.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were tons of things like that where they were like heavy-handed point changes, right? Not like, we're going to lower it 10.
Right.
But like a unit costing 100 points being lowered by 20 points is huge.
That's big.
That's a big point decrease. But also a 200-point character going down 50 is a lot. We saw plenty of that too. Skaven got tons of that.
Well, and then they just screeched Vermin King.
Yeah.
Became Wizard 2.
It's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. No point change, really. Yeah. Just cast another spell. Here you go.
Yep.
It's great.
You're better.
That's so good.
Which he should have been.
He should have been to begin with. I mean, that was kind of an oversight. They did, I will point this out again, they did lower the point cost on a lot of those Skaven heroes that came out in the Vermintide box.
Including the Brood Horror Monster.
He came down quite a bit. That makes him way, way more attractive now. I'll tell you that much.
Was it 9th edition when Codex Eldari came out? Those players declared it dead on arrival. It showed up to the first event with a 76% win rate.
I don't understand how it was dead on arrival. I remember looking at that and being like, this is insane. Everything is good. What do you mean dead?
Yep.
Insane.
They did. Eldar get that a lot, I guess. Before 10th edition came out, it was like, well, I got a sneak preview of like 4 of the armies. That guy posted online and he said like Eldar suck. Everything they had is gone now. They don't do anything. And then they come out, same thing. They had like a 70% win rate. It was like, stop it. But we'll see that, I'm sure. That chatter you saw with the aura was probably the same thing. It's like, nerf.
It's just gut reaction.
We're all nerfed everywhere.
So, some of the biggest changes I saw, especially for like foot heroes, especially the foot heroes you want to bring as your secondary hero, right? A lot of point changes for them, which Age of Sigmar, the assassin came down from 120 to 90. That's a 30-point drop. That is enormous.
They also, people should go read it. It's free, the update. They also did updates to some spear.
Yeah. The Van Denst family came down 40 points from 210 to 170.
Yeah.
Pontifex Zenestra, minus 40. Steam Tank Commander, minus 30. Both types of general, or a Free Guild Marshal came down 20. That's massive.
War Hydra.
Yeah, no surprise. So a lot of the lesser played armies that are very limited roster came down in points because you just need to be able to bring more in those armies to make them any better. You were looking at netting maybe a whole unit in some of these armies.
Right.
That's pretty substantial.
Well, yeah, like if you look at Fireslave beating a dead horse, they need more roster.
Yep.
But it's like, well, So if you brought a Flame Keeper, a Rune Father, a Magma Droth, Berserkers, it's like
You just saved 70 points.
Yeah. You're almost fitting another unit in.
That's huge. Yeah. Keelian King, Soul Render, Soul Scryer. Ida Thiepkin heroes came down. Almost all of the hero overlords came. The Engine Master with dirigible suit was 220 for some reason. Who knows? Minus 40. 180 still feels like a lot. Just Tackless went up. Good. Or he's too good. A lot of heroes there went down. Light of Altharian coming down.
Really like the Suit of Armor guy.
Saurus Old Blood for Seraphim. I guess all the big monsters. 40. All of them. Whoa. Jesus. Every monster in Seraphim came down 30 to 40. That's pretty massive.
Get it.
A lot of Stormcast heroes, especially the knights that can be part of regiment, have come down 10 and 40 points.
Well, yeah, and you'll see that in that notes column where they highlighted in green. That's like, it shows that now these heroes can be a part of a regiment.
Yeah.
That they don't lead.
I mean, we were talking about that. Being able to bring, literally like a month ago, we were talking about having lieutenant level characters being able to be brought in a regiment and not lead them. Because like right now, you're limited to 3 or 4 total heroes.
Yeah.
Unless you can bring the very specific one that can be brought as lieutenant. Now you've got tons of options for all kinds of other stuff. I love it.
Dryka came down 50.
Yep.
The Tree Lords came down 40. Lady of the Vines came down 30. Sylvaneth again has a very limited route. Even though they expanded them last time, I didn't realize how small they were.
Dryka minus 50 is huge. 290 to 240. I still don't know if she's worth 240. But that's a massive point decrease.
Yeah.
Lady of Vines being 250 is actually...
Well, and again, it's like... So Belthanos gets a lot of play.
Yeah.
But it's like...
He's by far the best character.
Yeah.
Like, he's up there with Spirit of Dirt. That's why they're about the same cost. He's up there in terms of, like, effectiveness and fightiness. Durthru's, like...
Well, and now you might
equal.
consider these where... Well, man, the Tree Lord is now 110 points cheaper than Spirit of Durthu.
Yeah.
Like, you might consider...
Pretty massive.
I get another unit of Gossamet Archers. You know,
Yep.
it's...
I think additionally Beasts of Chaos got some point decreases. I don't know what that's about.
Why not?
Because Bone Splitters didn't get anything. So why did Beasts? Another army that's not doing great. Blades of Corn got all kinds of decreases.
And their Bloodthirsters can be taken ones they're not leading.
Yes.
2 of them.
However, the only hero that can actually bring a Bloodthirster in it is the Wrath of Khorne Bloodthirster.
Yep.
Is the only one that can bring another Bloodthirster in the detachment with him. Like, no one else has the access to a baleful lord.
No, but like the...
But that allows you to get a second Bloodthirster in the army without having to take another detachment for it.
Right.
That's big.
And then on the mortal side, some of them can take the lesser heroes, like the Chaos Lord or the Mighty Lord of Khorne.
Okay. Yeah. The old Korgus Kull, Fleshhound
right.
Wrangler.
He can have a Skull Grinder in his thing. And so, yeah. So it's interesting is that army has posted results, but I guess not good enough or not with enough variety because they get a lot of points decreases. And we had long heard rumors that they might get a big update this edition, but we have no concept on a release date for them.
Well, part of the issue is like there's rumors of multiple big release, for this game, and we don't see much of it.
Yeah.
Like they don't tease it, early enough to know it's actually coming. We've had some rumor engines take years to pay off. So like even the rumors of the undead being very heavily updated, heavily featured in the upcoming summer event, whatever it is still only like, is it actually going to happen?
It's a theory.
I have no idea.
Well, and I do look at this. We start the year in January with LVO, and then in March we get Adepticon. I have to imagine we're going to see a lot of stuff at those 2 events. Disciples of Tzeentch had a lot of points increases, which wasn't surprising. They've been really hot.
Yeah. So a lot of the good stuff went up. A lot of the underplayed stuff went down. I mean that.
Yeah.
If you're playing a mixed list, and you keep that same list, you probably don't see a change. If you're spamming the good stuff, then you'll see points go up. If you're spamming bad stuff, you'll see your points go down. You can bring, like that's just how it goes, and I like that way of balancing.
Like Sinessa coming down 50.
Yeah.
Sinessa coming down 40.
Yeah.
Now you might play them.
He Knights of Slaanesh actually might bring some more stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
Skaven, as we were saying before, I'm on the Skaven section.
Oh yeah, yeah. Tons of decrease.
Deathmaster, when he first came out, was like 190 points,
which we did not understand why.
He got lowered in 3rd 3 or 4 times in a row. 4th came out, and he went back up to 160. He was down to like 100 points, 110 points. He went back up to 160 with doing less. by the way. He did less in 4th edition than he did in 3rd and went up. And now he's just gotten a 40-point decrease down to 120. Still might be overcosted at that. But 120 is considerable. Especially when you consider like a Claw Lord, which is a sort of an analogous foot hero to him. It's very selfish, right? He just wants to fight and kill things on his own. Is now down to 80. The one on Claw Beast is now 130. He originally came out at 160 and it was 180. He was at before, and this is his 2nd point decrease. He's down to 130 now. It's like, yeah, because he doesn't do anything. Why was he ever that many points?
Well, now all 3 warlocks are that now extra hero that can go in a regiment, which is neat.
Creddock Foulblade, I think, is another character who was insanely overcosted. He was 220.
Yeah.
Why? What does he do? He doesn't do anything. He buffs nearby Storm Vermin. That's all he did before.
Yep.
No one was taking Storm Vermin, though, because they didn't confer a ward to themselves, only to the character they were protecting. Every other bodyguard unit in the game, Saurus Guard, Praetors, like all of these units give the ward to themselves and their protectee.
Right.
These guys did not, though, which is very Skaven, I will say.
Yeah.
But in terms of like balance for like the rules, they didn't make any sense why they were so expensive for not having that extra layer of durability. They also got a point decrease down to, what is it, 120 for 10?
Yeah, that makes them much more attractive at 12 points a pop.
So him being 40 points down and them being 20 points down, now you can bring a unit of like 3, double units. I was throwing around a list that was like Uppsala Clan Rats kind of thing.
Yep.
Where it was Kritok and it was a Lord on foot and it was like 80 Clan Rats and 60 Storm Vermin. That was the whole list. And it was him with 3 units of 20 Storm Vermin. That's kind of horrifying.
Yeah.
That's a lot of bodies. That's a scary list. And it all fit. That was the crazy.
That's 900 for him and those 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was not that bad. It was very reasonable. Visit Scour coming down 50, brand new model.
Yeah.
Priced at 450 was like, why? Down to 50 now. Or down by 50.
Well, and that may, because his rules are great, but that may have been the only reason he wasn't getting played was 450 was outrageous for him, but down to 400 even.
Yep. Globadiers coming down. Why they were 26 points apiece.
For 1 wound?
For, I think it's only 1 wound guy. They're now down 30. They're down to 20 points apiece now. Might be too many points still. 80 points I think would be reasonable. 100 is still, but 100 is considerable, right? The Brood Terror, the new model for Clan Mulder, came down 40 from 300. 260, again, if it was 240, he's not durable. It's like, that's a very expensive model for how many wounds he's got. But at 260, I could see it, right? That's the key, is it's like a lot of these are kind of on the edge there of like, I could see bringing this now. It's not an auto-include by any means, but I could make it work.
Well, and then they all their weapon teams and artillery came down, with the exception of the Rattling Gun. Rattling Gun was very good.
Yep.
And the rest of them coming down, now you've got a reason to consider them.
The Warpfort Scourgers are definitely the best of the options, and they're still the most expensive. I'm surprised the Giselles didn't come down a little more than what they are, because their damage output's just not there. I also think that throughout the different armies, the sort of the narrative named character units are interesting. Your saviors, your Gunner Brand's Oath, whatever unit, Neve, that style. Yeah. I like the idea of those units because they are world building, right? Because they are characters from books, they're characters from the actual lore, from the stories that you can actually play with. I hope there's more of them.
Well, and you know what's interesting is they started doing that as like almost diorama pieces where you had Catacros and then you had Triumph of St. Catherine in 40K.
Yep.
Where it was like, well, this is 5 models, counts as one.
Glutos?
Yeah.
I mean,
and now it's about we just do a unit of them.
Right.
But they're
Gabapalooza.
but they're a single entry.
Right. And now you've got like the command core for Cities of Sigmar, where it's 6 models that are very, very different from one another. Like that could have been a big base single model, you know, kind of like Catacross is, that does all these different things.
And now the Varangar are right back to the original cost they used to always be, which is 110 per model.
Yep.
I think they finally decided that they are killing. They can stay right. Flesh Eater Courts I don't know enough about, but they just are in the green all down the board. I know they had one of the lowest win rates for a while.
Oh man, almost every single thing in the army went down.
Because they were...
That is really funny.
I know they were the weird spike on the data where they had a run for a short while. I don't know if they stayed there, but they were like 38% win rate or something bad like that. So maybe it was just they were too expensive for what they did.
Maybe they didn't make out well in 4th edition.
Yeah, they came down everywhere, and but they had a low win rate. I want to say they had a data pass where they were like 38 or 40%, just real low.
Right.
And it's a shame because a bunch of cool new models. I considered buying at least their Spearhead for that reason. But yeah, they got a huge point cut. I mean, that is significant. You're buying extra units.
Yeah, the only thing that didn't go down is like the main foot leaders of the army.
Yeah,
right.
Decapitator stayed at 100. Aberrant Cart stayed at 1. But it's like any of the Terrorgeist or Zombie Dragon ones, way down.
Yeah.
Nagash, way down. Usharon, way down. Crypt Flayers.
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it is too is the lack of universal spell lore makes Nagash. So Nagash has different points in every single one of the undead armies.
Yep.
And so he's got different profiles in each one, different spell lores available in each one, and different point costs in each one. So so Flesh Eater Court Nagash, who was 880, like all the other ones, came down to 840. The Nagash for Night Haunt stayed 880. Night Haunt, again, one of those armies that was doing just fine. Some of the too good stuff went up, and some of the too bad stuff came down.
Well, because even after they did their balance pass, where they took their rule away from the entire army being able to always retreat, run, and charge,
right.
and now they made it so like one unit can do it. They were still winning like almost a little too high.
Right.
And so now we've seen some of the points go up, not a huge amount. Yeah,
Bone Reapers, a mixed bag. Another example of Nagash in Bone Reapers went up 20.
Yeah.
So he's 60 points more in Bone Reapers than he is in Flesh Eater Courts.
Well, and they're now Bone Reapers have had some success recently, but they are really like mono build because they have such a tiny roster.
Right.
It's another one that I want to see them just go ham with and expand. Soulblight Gravelords, biggest undead roster. They came down a lot everywhere.
Yeah, which I'm surprised by. I thought they were doing pretty good. Yeah, little weird to me. I mean, lots of little points. Some stuff that was not being played at all.
I mean, the Victorian Lord came down 50.
I mean, both of them did.
Yeah.
Even Lakavai,
is that the Centaur ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the named character version of him, she came down 50. Radiger the Beast, which I thought was fair at 330, came down 30 points.
Well, he is a fighty fellow,
yeah.
That's for sure.
Kritza the Rat Prince, who is, I mean, he's just a vampire lord, and he's pretty good. He's only 70 points now. It's like...
And there they added that the two different White Kings can now be pro.
Yep.
I really like that. That's a neat, and that's one of those you can tell they thought of after original design.
Yeah. They're like, oh, we should have done more.
Well, yeah, because it's like all these heroes aren't getting played because you have to buy a whole regiment to unlock them. So what if, you make them a little more value add? So you're right, Bones. Absolutely. Now, Gloomspite gets, I don't know how long these points will stick because we know they've got
correct
an update coming.
Yep.
And they'll have a couple of new Iron Jaw, though these might be their permanent.
These might be the ones for the new book. I mean, again,
Gordrak coming down 50.
Oh yeah, Gordrak coming down 50 is pretty good. He lost a lot of his uniqueness.
Yeah.
He doesn't do a lot of really cool things anymore, and so he at one point was like 560 points, and it was hard to justify him at that. And then with all those things going away, he should not be anywhere near that point cost anymore. 380 is still pretty high for the kind of things he does, but.
And then the generic Cabbage Dragon 360.
Yeah.
So that's almost a reason to only 20 points. Interesting. Then Cruel Boys, this might be their final look too. But you at least think on paper their Hobgrot side might be better.
I think they came out pretty good on the Hobgrot side. I don't think the army got nerfed that badly. Honestly, I don't. Like it's not much worse than it was.
And I think slaves are that way too. Like, I don't think they really got nerfed that bad, like I had originally thought.
Like, a lot of people I know were using, the way they played the army was they were taking these big units of gut rippers, which are the normal orc boy guys, 2 wounds apiece, 2 attacks apiece, mortal wounds on the hits, critical hits. We're using them as like their damage dealers for the army, which is
just proccing for mortal damage.
Yeah, which is weird to me that they're the damage dealers. It's like, that's the only unit you really have in the army. Like, the roster's too small. We know that already. Like, we'll throw that out there. It's too small. There needs to be a damage dealer unit besides gut rippers in the army. That could have been the Hobgrot Slitas, right? Think of like any MMO game or any party-based RPG. You've got a tank who soaks up the damage, and you've got a squishy little unit that sneaks up behind him and does all the damage, right? Hobgrot Slitas could have been the ones to have mortal wounds on their hit rolls, but be really extremely squishy with 1 wound apiece and 6 up save. Like, you don't want them getting hit by anything.
And you can have 2 versions of them. You can have ones that stab like that, and you can have the ones that throw the little grenade things or whatever they have, and the little hand bombs. And yeah, could have been, but they're like made out of paper, you know, so that's a trade-off.
And so, like, right now, it's like you just forego the Hobgrots altogether and just spam gut rippers, or have a gut ripper front line with a bunch of kill bows, right? Or bolt boys to do like your ranged mortal wound damage or auto wound damage. Now I guess it is. The roster is just too small to really have specialized units right now. Like, there needs to be another like more elite unit that does damage that can allow the actual gut rippers to just be
infantry,
right? So,
and maybe this will be the addition of the short roster armies getting expanded, because they really skipped almost all of 3rd edition when it came to that.
Yeah,
outside of slaves, like in cities, really, like it, like they got, but every other army was book and a model type thing, right? I mean,
there were some pigs, there were some updates to Iron Jaws.
That was
they got a little bit, and then ogres point decreases for unplayed stuff. I mean, if you look at what got reduced, it's like, you don't see any of this stuff on the battlefield ever.
Nope.
Blood Pelt Hunter, nope. Ice Brow Hunter, definitely no.
I don't know what that is.
That's the one with the club and the spears on his back that leads the Yetis and the saber tusks. Yeah, frost sabers. That's him. You'd never see him. The Tyrant, which was an old model, still. Wait, did he get a new one? Did the Tyrant get a new one with like a spear and a hammer?
A newer one. That's plastic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, both the Husk Guards can now,
which helps.
Which is neat.
That does help. Not having to dedicate an entire detachment to them. That's not bad. Regiment. That is good. But then you look at the other stuff. It's like, okay, Noblars. No one plays Noblars. Gorger Maul Pack. New kit. A little too expensive this edition. $240. Yeah. Might still be a little high.
That might still be high.
Cool models. I think they do a cool thing.
It specifically can't be forced.
Yeah. So pretty much everything that's a Warcry kit cannot be reinforced, which is travesty. That's a problem.
So I noticed Crusher, which some can take as those came down
quite a bit,
and then all 3 of the named Regiment Renowned Gargants, Mega Gargants came.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't think anyone was playing them. Like I own one, but I've never saw and use one-eyed Grunnak in my Gotrek came down.
Yep, needed to. He does not do anything close to what he did when he first came out.
So Sabers of Cinderfell went up quite a bit. Were they getting played a lot?
Yep.
Callus and Toll.
Because they're takeable in any of these armies, right? Anything in order. And for how many wounds they had. So they were 230 before. It was 10 plus 19 wound unit, basically, which is pretty. Yeah. It's pretty hefty for 230. That also had a 4-up ward save in addition to having a 4. It was a 4-up. The unit was just too durable. Was the problem. Okay. They were too hard to kill for how many points they costed. So them going up in points is pretty reasonable, honestly. Mm-hmm. There were a couple other regiments of renown that came down. There was
well, it's interesting that Gunnar Brand's group in Slaves is cheaper than he is as a Regiment of Renown.
Well, because the Regiment of Renown rules are better. Yeah, it's just
he gets an extra.
It's just like the Spearhead. It's just the Dark Oath and the Spearhead are better than the Dark Oath in normal game. Same with this. But there are no army rules that benefit them. The marks are all gone. Like the eyes of the god is all gone. There's nothing that benefits them in that army. There's no priests that buff them anymore. Like there's nothing.
You could use the wizard to,
I guess,
give them a thing.
Sure.
Yeah. I did notice, speaking of that, now you can fit 2 of the Dark Oath heroes in the same regiment because now the one on Steed can be taken.
Yep.
And that, so I think a part of what makes the Dark Oath viable is actually when you have all those little heroes doing the little things for them. Now they're cheap enough. Now you can fit 2 of them in the same regiment. I think that's relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, going back to, I think Dark Oath might be good now.
Yeah.
So despite all the Grotmas 40K updates, which add a new way to play for pretty much every army, at the very least, it gives you something to test out.
Yeah.
Because these new detachments on that end have been all very different.
They're a little hard to talk about because you have to be intimately familiar with your army to know if they're good or not. Like on the surface, it's like, yeah, I think at the very least, I think it's safe to say they're interesting.
They are.
If they're good, I think there are some that are good. I think there's some that are markedly bad. It might be the worst detachment that the army even has, right? Like I think some of them are in that boat, but I don't know. Like I said, try it.
It gives you something new to do.
It's hard to know all 24 armies.
Well, it's so you and I talked about this, or I at least mentioned when we were texting. It's like Games Workshop is on a bit of a DLC model.
You know what? That's a really good, and that's a good way to put it.
And it's so
the base game is kind of free, but you have to buy these modules, and if you want to collect the whole thing, you're shelling out hundreds of dollars.
Yep. And
so buy the module that it pertains to you.
And then sometimes they give you some free LC.
Some free LC.
but like this. But when they do, so it's doing just like when you play a game for so long and the community gets a little burnt out or it feels solved, even if it's not. I think that's an overused term, but it feels solved. And then it's like, well, here comes a patch, here comes a free LC, here comes a DLC, and it gives you a whole new way to play. They're kind of doing that, and it's smart because people are used to that right now, because a lot of gamers who play this also play video games and are used to that. This really feels like on the 40K side, that's what it felt like is free LC. Now every army has got something new to at least try out. And 40K is in a sort of good spot, dare I say, where their meta seems pretty diverse.
Right.
And in AOS, of course, the edition's still brand new, but giving us a balance pass this early that cleared up some definitions of things and already gave us a new way to play with these heroes being able to be doubled up in a regiment with new bodyguard rules to take. Yeah, it's
Honor Guard, I believe is what they're called.
Or Honor Guard. It's free LC that's given us new stuff to.
Yeah, for sure. I love it.
So much fun.
And like I said, we got the holidays coming up, and we got some time maybe to try some of this stuff out. You know.
Yep, definitely. Any holiday meals you look forward to every year?
There's one very specific cinnamon roll.
Cinnamon roll?
No, there's a.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm not big on food in the holiday, like hot apple cider and stuff like that, the warm drinks. I leave.
That's what gets you. Huh?
I leave the food up to Thanksgiving.
Apple soup. That's what gets you.
It depends. Is it fresh and hot?
Right.
Is it chunky?
Is it soup because it's a whole bunch of leftovers mixed together?
Yeah. No, it's I always look forward to eating. Turns out this year we're actually making quite a bit of treats and snacks and sweets and food and stuff like that as our gifts. Just because I've been experimenting with some of that stuff recently, so
yeah,
that'll be other people
experimenting. So you're trying them out first before you unleash them on family.
Oh man, yeah, we had some major mess ups. That's for sure. Turns out if you cook,
the smile says.
It turns out if you cook caramel too long, it gets really burnt, flavored, and not great. Also,
it's just melted rubber.
Also, we learned that fudge is more than just chocolate mixed with condensed milk. Which, depending on the recipe, may not be the case. Yeah. Last
time I had fudge, I went on this is way off track, but I actually went on a vacation up to Lake Superior, the Wisconsin side.
Ah, the best lake.
Yep, it's Superior. And it's there's two cities up, Bayward and Hayfield, or it's Hayward and Bayfield.
Yeah.
But one of them's right on the lake. And so it was neat. We went there with some friends. You all right? Oh, you're just being silly. I thought you were choking. You get hair in there. Oh, cut the. So we went there, and like in the morning, like catch of the day would come in on boats. And so we would just be like, you'd go in at like 8 a.m, the catch came in at 6, and you'd have to wait for the smoked versions, but they would have like fresh trout, fresh whatever they just caught that day. Scoop, yep. And then in the town, they had small business, where they just homemade fudge, and it was the only thing they did. Walking in, the smell was incredible. And all these things that I didn't know could be fudge, because I only knew fudge as like that sort of chocolate paste.
Yeah, very chalky kind of.
It was like when canned frosting sat too long on a cake. That's what I thought fudge was. But all these were different colors, and yet no dyes or anything. Where it was like, oh, they can make fudge out of it. And they'd let you sample a number of them, and they were just food groups. They were so good. But the town had a thing where there were no chains. No chain stores, no chain gas stations, no nothing.
So it was like a town mandate. They weren't allowed to have those kinds of businesses.
And so it was.
Was it like a historical town? Because like I know that is.
It might have been.
We've got some local towns that do that same thing, right? Because they were like a historical, preserved like village.
Well, I know there was a large contingent in the area of Swedish people lived in the area in Wisconsin, and they had they spoke the language and everything. Like it was, but then a lot of it was it had to be locally owned, whatever. And then but you could tell, because you'd have stuff like that where it was like an entire fudge store. That was incredible. Yeah. But that was the last time I had. That was a long time ago, over a decade.
Wow.
Because otherwise I always thought of fudge of like the stuff in the box that Mom made or whatever. That wasn't very...
My mom did a few things well in terms of cooking. Just a few. One of them was a peanut butter fudge.
Okay.
She did. It was very, very good. Chocolate fudge, not so much. But the peanut butter was great.
So is that what they attempt to do in Reese's Big Cups?
Maybe.
That dense, almost cakey peanut butter?
Yeah, it's like gritty.
Sand.
Sandy peanut butter.
Sand, yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. The fudge, I've like a good fudge has to be a little chewy.
Yep.
Right? It has to, when you pull it, it has to create some tendrils, right? It can't just break off in solid break. But I think it's also like, it's got to be...
Okay. Great down.
But it's also got to be like solid enough that
You're going to do a lot of editing.
It holds up to its own weight. Right, like you could cut off a slice of it, you could hold it up, and it'll keep its shape.
Right, because instead of, you don't want to like cut it and it all depresses down and then pinches and then does
like a soft caramel. You don't want it to like, just be floppy. So I don't know. It's a weird like chemical, state that's very specific to the how much moisture was in the milk and how much you reduced it. And
so you guys tried some, and it just some were hits and some were misses.
Yeah, so the fudge we made was just not a good recipe. That's what I learned for that. The caramel we made was half. The one batch we did, we shot too far beyond the goalpost, and then the other one we fell a little short. While the flavor was good on the second batch, it was floppy caramel. It's the kind of caramel you'd want to put inside of a candy.
Cadbury egg kind of thing or whatever.
Or like a turtle or something.
Caramello.
Yeah. Whereas the first batch was just cigarette butt. It was so smoky. And
is there one reason I had quit eating caramellos, now that I think about it, was just because you can't get a clean bite. Because whether you bit it at the break in the chocolate brick or in the middle of it, that thing always dripped out and landed on your chin, and it was in your facial hair.
Yeah, it was like me. If you got a lot of facial hair, it becomes part of it.
Yeah, it's just there.
Right, it becomes one
instantly
of the
dries.
It becomes one of the hairs in your beard.
Pure liquid inside the candy bar dries instantly outside of it.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's just one of those where it was like the inconvenience of it made me stop eating it. That was the same way with Cheetos. It was like
so I learned the secret to eating Cheetos from one of the
chopsticks.
Chopsticks. It works. It works so well because they're so knobbly. That like you could just really easily pick them up with chopsticks. Either that or you just go like latex glove.
Yeah,
and then like
if I just had a painting session, I just keep that glove on, go.
Yeah, exactly. Which that's a pain, but the chopsticks was very easy. Or if you had like food tweezers, I don't know. Is that a thing?
It is.
Okay, that would be fine.
There are food grade large.
That would be fine.
Yeah.
That would work. Just something that keeps your fingers off of it. Yep. It prevents the what is it called? The caking. Or was it the what do you call it when you like batter something? When you get your fingers in the egg wash, then in the flour.
Club. You get club hand or whatever. Yeah.
Yep. That kind of thing.
But with orange. With orange, not food.
With orange, not completely unnatural.
Not food grade, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah. It's just that inconvenience made it not edible.
Molecular gastronomy has created.
Yes.
edible chemicals.
Yep.
But yeah.
Edible being
honestly, though, that just thinking about Cheetos has actually made me really hungry.
But would you ever? I mean, did you ever experience pregnancy cravings?
Personally, no, not when I was pregnant.
Did you ever have sympathy ones?
I can claim I did. I just like to eat. So,
yeah. But Cheetos and fudge together? I mean, we could try it.
You could try. I mean, what if you dusted fudge with like a topping of Cheeto
instead of powdered sugar?
Yeah, any of that. Any of that.
Just dust
whatever.
it on top.
You know, like how
like a cayenne pepper brownie.
Sometimes you got like chocolate bars where they've got like cayenne flake in it or like pepper flake in it.
Yep.
You do that with like Flamin' Hot Cheetos or something in the chocolate. I think I'm onto something.
Why haven't they thought of that yet?
Indeed.
If anyone at Frito's listening, don't steal our idea.
Hey, do you have a connection there?
Not anymore. Retired.
Okay. Damn. $1 million idea.
$1 million idea.
But I could.
That's $1 million idea.
Yeah.
Eating.
Let's eat.
Thanks for joining. We hope you enjoyed. Follow us for more of our weekly episodes on YouTube Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean. You can follow myself and Llama on Instagram. We are at Llama Paints Minis and Hyena Paints Minis. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. And as always, we'll catch you next time.